Strategically positioned in the Horn of Africa, Somalia is bordered by Djibouti to the northwest, Ethiopia to the west, Kenya to the southwest, and finally, the Indian Ocean lying to the east. Historic links with the Islamic world saw the region ruled by various sultanates, influencing trade and religion. These relations in particular triggered clashes between the Ottoman and the Portuguese empires in the 16th century as they battled to occupy the Somali peninsula, which was critical for control over the maritime trade routes. In the late 19th century, the European scramble for Africa divided Somali territories among colonial powers. France had the north, now Djibouti. Britain took the northeast, now Somaliland. Italy the southeast, and finally Ethiopia was granted the northwest, commonly referred to as Ogaden. Despite this, Somali resistance remained strong, particularly from Mohammed Abdullah Hassan, known to the British as the Mad Mullah, the revered nationalist who led a 20-year armed struggle against British forces. Though defeated in 1920, his fight ignited a nationalist spirit that would later fuel the push for independence. Post-World War II, momentum toward independence surged across Somalia's divided colonial territories. In the northeast, British Somaliland began laying the foundations for self-rule by establishing a legislative council. Meanwhile, in the southeast, Italian Somaliland was designated a UN Trust territory under Italian administration in 1950, with a 10-year mandate to prepare the region for full independence. Nationalist movements like the Somali Youth League, SYL, driven by figures such as Aden Abdullah Osman Dar, Haji Bashir Ismail Yusuf, and Muhammad Haji Ibrahim Egal, championed unification. British Somaliland gained independence on June 26, 1960, followed by Italian Somaliland on July 1, 1960. On the same day, the two territories united to form the Somali Republic, marking a historic moment of pan-Somali unity. Dar was elected as the first president of the republic, and Abdirashid Ali Shamarke became the first prime minister. However, forging a single nation out of two colonial legacies was no easy feat. Deep regional and clan-based divisions re-emerged. Tensions with Ethiopia and Kenya escalated due to their refusal to hand over Somali-inhabited territories under their control. To counter this, the Somali government sponsored separatist activities in these territories in an attempt to liberate them. In 1967, Shamarka succeeded Dar as president after democratic elections. His rise marked a shift in national leadership, reflecting growing public trust and ability to bridge the North-South divide. He also addressed irredentist issues by signing a peace deal with Kenya. Unknowingly, what seemed as a huge diplomatic stride at the time led to his tragic downfall. He was assassinated in October 1969 during a visit to Las Anod. Shortly after, Major General Mohammed Siad Barre led a bloodless military coup. He abolished the constitution, dissolved parliament, replacing it with the Supreme Revolutionary Council, and introduced scientific socialism, a policy he claimed aligned with Islamic principles. Initially, his government achieved significant gains. He nationalized key industries, launched nationwide literacy campaigns, fostered women's empowerment, and supported rural development. The Somali language was officially codified using Latin script. Additionally, aligning with the Soviet Union during the Cold War era brought extensive aid and military support. Barre was hailed by some as a modernizer, but darker days loomed. As Barre's grip tightened, his regime grew increasingly authoritarian, enforcing loyalty through an expansive surveillance network and suppressing dissent. But the main focus lay on the historical conflict with Ethiopia. From Somalia, the Soviets took advantage of this, and used it as a base to infiltrate Ethiopia, destabilizing and eventually toppling Emperor Haile Selassie in 1974. Later, in 1977, Somalia invaded Ethiopia's Ogaden region in a bid to unite ethnic Somalis under one flag. Realizing that Somalia was more interested with Somali nationalism over communism, the Soviets chose to back Ethiopia, now under Mengistu Mariam, and aligned with communist ideals. Facing defeat, Somalia had no choice but to withdraw. This prompted Barre to turn to the United States for support, marking a dramatic realignment in Cold War geopolitics. With US financial aid flowing in, Barre attempted to reassert control and restore internal order, but the scars left by the Ogaden War were too deep. This weakened his credibility, ultimately triggering his regime's unraveling. Armed opposition movements emerged, notably the Somali National Movement, SNM, in the north and the Somali Salvation Democratic Front, SSDF, in the northeast. Barre responded with brutal force, especially in the north, where Hargeisa was bombed and thousands were killed. In 1991, Barre's regime collapsed. He fled the capital as the country spiraled into chaos. The SNM declared Somaliland independent in the northwest. Puntland in the northeast declared autonomy but remained part of a federal Somalia. Meanwhile, the south descended into a deadly contest between warlords such as Mohammed Farah Aidid and Mohammed Said Hassi Morgan. In 1992, the international community intervened. Operation Restore Hope, led by the United States, aimed to secure aid routes. In the infamous Battle of Mogadishu, 2 US helicopters were shot down and hundreds were killed in ensuing clashes. By 1995, international forces withdrew, leaving Somalia to its fate. The years that followed saw rule by militias and makeshift governments. But by 2000, efforts to restore a national government saw the formation of a transitional national government. It was later replaced by the Transitional Federal Government, TFG, in 2004. In 2006, the Union of Islamic Courts, UIC, briefly established order in Mogadishu, but concerns about extremism prompted Ethiopia to intervene militarily, toppling the UIC. Out of this chaos emerged Al-Shabaab, a radical offshoot linked to Al-Qaeda. They seized large swathes of the country, imposed strict Sharia law, and waged relentless attacks, including the 2017 Mogadishu truck bombing that killed over 500 people. Somalia became a global symbol of violent extremism. But the story didn't end there. With the help of the African Union Mission in Somalia, AMISOM, regional allies like Kenya and Ethiopia, and international support, Somalia began to regain ground. In 2012, a new provisional constitution was adopted. Somalia's first formal parliament in 2 decades was sworn in. Hassan Sheikh Mohamud became president, marking a hopeful shift. In 2017, Mohamed Abdullahi Mohamed Farmajo took office. His tenure brought momentum, but also deep political division. In 2020, he signed a historic electoral law to hold the first direct elections in over 50 years. However, COVID-19, political infighting, and security concerns delayed implementation. Farmajo's controversial term extension in 2021 sparked protests and clashes. Eventually, elections resumed, and in 2022, Hassan Sheikh Mohamud returned as president in a peaceful transition of power. Despite the formal progress, the struggle continues. Al-Shabaab remains a persistent threat, launching increasingly bold and high-profile attacks. While civilian casualties have somewhat declined, the group's ability to destabilize key regions remains strong. Meanwhile, the capital city of Mogadishu swells with over 600,000 internally displaced people. Families uprooted, by war, drought, and famine. To add to that, nearly 5 million Somalis rely on food aid to survive. Over 2 million Somalis fled the country since the outbreak of civil war in 1991. Approaching 65 years since independence, the nation still has a long way to go before it can claim the true benefits of freedom. Despite all this, the spirit of the Somali people has never been extinguished. This is the post-independence history of Somalia, a nation battered but certainly not broken.